Imagine the year is 793 AD. You are standing on the quiet shores of England. Suddenly, silhouettes appear in the mist, ships with carved dragon heads slicing through the water. What followed was an era of terror that shook Europe to its core. These were the Vikings. They were the sworn enemies of the church. They burned monasteries, slaughtered priests, and worshipped gods of war like Thor and Odin. To them, mercy was a weakness, and paradise, Valhalla, was reserved only for those who died violently in battle. But then, history took one of its strangest turns. Think about it. How did a people who lived by the axe end up bowing to the cross? How did the most feared warriors in the world become followers of the Prince of Peace? Was it a miracle, or was it the bloodiest conversion in history? The truth is, the Vikings didn't just accept Christianity through love. They were often converted at the point of a sword. Today, we are going to journey into the mountains of Norway to uncover how the Viking Age ended and Christian civilization began. To understand this transformation, we first have to understand the Viking mind. For centuries, the Norse people were pagans. They believed that the thunder was the sound of Thor's hammer, and that their fate was woven by the Norns. When they first encountered Christianity during their raids in England and France, they were confused. They saw people hiding in churches, praying instead of fighting back. To a Viking, a god who didn't fight for his people was useless. They looted the gold, enslaved the monks, and carried the treasures back to the north. But along with the gold, they brought back something else: ideas. As the Vikings traveled further, they realized that the Christian kingdoms of Europe were powerful, wealthy, and organized. They had written laws, stable trade, and strong alliances. The Viking chieftains were smart. They realized that if they wanted to sit at the same table as the kings of England and Germany, they needed to be part of the same club. The change started slowly. The first king to attempt this was Haakon the Good. He had been raised in England as a Christian. When he returned to Norway to claim his throne, he tried to introduce the faith gently, but the people of Norway were furious. At a harvest festival, the local chieftains forced the king to eat horse liver, a pagan sacrifice, just to prove he was one of them. His attempt failed, and the old gods remained. But the real turning point wasn't gentle. It came with the rise of King Olav Tryggvason. Olav was not a soft-spoken priest. He was a brutal warrior who had raided across the Baltic. When he converted, he brought his warrior spirit into his new religion. His policy was simple: baptism or death. He sailed along the coast of Norway, burning the farms of those who refused to convert. He targeted the pagan sorcerers, tying them to rocks in the harbor to drown as the tide came in. It is a dark paradox of history that a religion preaching forgiveness was planted in Norway through such extreme violence. Olav spread fear, but he also spread the faith. However, the final blow to the old gods came in the year 1030, at the famous Battle of Stiklestad. Another Christian king, Olav Haraldsson, marched to retake his throne and Christianize the land once and for all. He was met by a massive army of pagan farmers. In the heat of the battle, the king was struck down. He died holding his sword. It looked like a total defeat for Christianity. The Vikings had won. They had killed the Christian king. But then, something unexplained happened. Shortly after the battle, a solar eclipse turned the sky dark. Crops began to fail. A rumor spread across the land that Olav's hair and nails were still growing after his death. The very people who had killed him began to feel a deep collective guilt. They started to believe that they had killed a holy man. In a twist of fate, the dead king became more powerful than the living one. He was declared Saint Olav. People who refused to bow to his sword now bowed to his shrine. This was the moment the Viking Age truly ended. The transformation was total. The Vikings tore down their pagan temples, but they didn't lose their identity completely. They used their expert shipbuilding skills to construct the magnificent stave churches. If you look closely at these churches today, you will still see dragon heads carved on the roofs, a silent memory of their Viking past, now serving a new god. Today, the flag of Norway carries a cross, a permanent symbol of this dramatic shift. The Vikings were not destroyed. They were civilized. They traded their hammers for books and their raids for trade, laying the foundation for the modern nation we see today. If the Vikings had never converted, the map of Europe and the history of the world would look very different. Thank you for watching this journey into the past. If you found this story fascinating, please like the video and subscribe to Christian Civilizations for more stories from history. I'll see you in the next one.